Now we're going to get into Brush Street Beat presented by McLaren Health Care. And today's guest is a very special guest, the Pittsburgh Pirates play-by-play announcer, Joe Block. Joe, I, for one, am really excited to have you join us today because I know, A, that you grew up in Roseville, and B, that you're a fellow Spartan. So Spartans are always welcome here on the Word on Woodward. So why don't we start off? Tell me about your time growing up in Roseville and the journey to Michigan State.
Yeah, it was great. I plan on being in Pittsburgh the rest of my life. This is I married a Pittsburgh girl, so we're here, right? But growing up, I'm a Detroiter through and through in my heart because, you're born in Detroit. You are a Detroiter. Just had some Detroit pizza yesterday. Actually, I brought into the office. I don't know if I can say the name of the place obviously, but there's a lot of things that I think about all the time growing up in Detroit. But yeah, we were over at 12 and Little Mac there, and was a huge Tigers fan growing up. This was right after the '84 Tigers. That's what got me interested. What's everybody talking about, right? So, but love the mid '80s, late '80s teams. The '87 clincher, Tanana beating Jimmy Key and Darrell Evans, hugging Tanana, Larry Herndon hitting the home run. That was my favorite game of my life. So growing up in Detroit, it was fantastic. And then going to Michigan State, best decision I ever made. My buddy Greg Mullen was the one person that somehow told me that going to state was a good idea. I didn't know where I was going to go to school. It was a great idea. Obviously, Daniella, it was a fantastic place to go. Great education there. And I'm just so glad to be a Spartan. Always will be.
We just celebrated Ernie Harwell's first broadcast ever. And it was probably with the Brooklyn Dodgers or wherever he first broke in. But was he a big influence? I know you said the '84 Tigers were, but was Ernie a big influence in your career as far as being a play-by-play announcer?
Yeah, he was a friend. I'm so lucky to say that I got to know him for a good while he was still working games, and then in his retirement years too, because as anybody knows, Ernie was so giving of his time and expertise, thank goodness. So when I reached out to him, he was very amenable to listening to my work at the time. Beginning in 2000, I started working in the minor leagues after I graduated state in '99. So he would listen to games that I was doing, give me some very important feedback. I was extremely poor at that time. I don't know how much better I've gotten, but I have gotten better. But he would help me out a lot. And in fact, I like to tell a story. One year, it was Christmas Eve, and he offered to have lunch with me on Christmas Eve, and we spent 2.5 hours talking about the art of baseball broadcasting. And I think it was about 2:30. And he was saying, "All right, Lulu's got the ham going. I got to go, but good luck," and that kind of thing. I mean, he was that giving of his time. So, I could talk about Ernie forever. He was a huge mentor for me. And between he and Dan Dickerson, whose wife was my journalism professor at State, I knew Ernie for a while, and I've known Dan I just talked to him today, for instance. I've known him for 25 years. And to know those two guys, the voices of Tiger baseball for the last, between them, the last 60 years, it's quite a thrill to be able to call both those guys my friends.
Two great guys. Dan does a lot of work with us here on the Word on Woodward, so we know him really well, and it's always fun to work with him. Joe, I do want to talk to you about the upcoming series between the Pirates and the Tigers that will start on Friday night, and the Tigers are coming off, for lack of a better term, I'm going to call it a break. Obviously, the series with St. Louis was postponed, so they had a couple workout days in between series here. In your mind, is this going to be an advantage or a disadvantage for your Pittsburgh Pirates?
Well, it's interesting because in the game of baseball, I think the only time that you really see one team maybe having more days off than the other is in the postseason. If a team sweeps and advances, and then another team maybe has to play a 7-game series, that's about the only time typically that you hear that brought up. What is which team has the advantage? Well, I think the advantage is if you have 2 or 3 strong starting pitchers, you can reset your rotation. But hitters can lose their timing a little bit, and I think that's something where the layoff can not benefit. And also later in the year, you're dealing with a bunch of injuries typically, and so you can kind of rest those guys if you're really beat up. That can be of a benefit. But these guys haven't been playing all that long this year, so I don't know if that can really be an advantage. So it remains to be seen. But we know that there's not a lot of home field advantage right now either, with the fans not in the stands. So I don't know how to really handicap the performance of those teams this weekend.
Joe, looking at the Pirates, they're 2-9 right now. They're having a bit of a problem. So I'm kind of curious that when you look at this series, or you look at where the Pirates are at and the Tigers, both teams kind of low expectations this year. Tigers surprisingly 5-5. What is it like when you're calling a team that is in rebuilding mode? I mean, do you have a lot of material, or are you just trying to learn a roster? Because usually when teams are rebuilding, there's a lot of players that shuffle in and out of town.
Well, we were just talking about Ernie, and Ernie always said every game stands on its own. And that's something that I really tell myself these days, especially because even in just 11 games into the season, we're not talking about the standings right now, because even in this shortened season, the expectations don't really matter, because if you get off to a decent start, and Detroit has, then you're in it, and you don't need much more to get you any closer than that here in the early going. So, but with the Pirates starting off 2-9, thanks for that reminder, Art. You're on it today. I'm just teasing with you.
Yeah. You're my favorite guy.
Oh my God, I was having such a great day. It's sunny here.
Hey,
no,
whenever
honestly,
you need to pick me up, Joe, just give me a call.
Yeah, I'd be like, hey, Art, a glass half empty. I'm just teasing. I've been listening to you. I know. We do a lot of preparation. We're trying to tell the stories of these guys. The Twins pitcher that's playing the Pirates tonight, for instance, is from our area. So that's something that we're going to talk about a lot tonight. Tomorrow we have a Pirates pitcher making his first major league start. I met his parents before, so I got a little bit of background on him and things like that. So that's the kind of stuff, truthfully, I like talking about anyway. I do like to talk about the actual game and the strategy involved and things like that, of course, and we will. But telling the stories of the people involved, that's something that I really remember Ernie doing, and I like to still do that. And it just, I guess, maybe his influence on me.
Joe, before we let you go, I have to ask you this question. Obviously, you grew up in this area, and like you said, when you're from Detroit, you're Detroit. That is what it is. Are you still a Detroit sports fan? So are you more of a Pittsburgh sports fan, or how does that work?
That's a great question, and it's a little complicated. I've lived here 5 years in Pittsburgh, so I bounced around in a lot of different minor league locations and things like that. But I spent all my formative years in Detroit. Went to school at State, as we know. So I'm always a State fan, obviously, from going to school there. In baseball, I work for the Pirates. I'm a Pirates fan now, but I'm still always going to be a fan of those Tigers teams. So whenever I come across Tram Whitaker or anybody like that, oh my gosh, I get goosebumps. It's ridiculous. I'm a Pistons fan still to this day. I got the great fortune to call a few games filling in for Mark Champion a few years back. George Blaha has been a friend and a mentor for me. So, knowing the people that are involved with the Pistons, still a big Piston fan. I'm unfortunately a Lions fan. 1 year, it's going to be really great to be a Lions fan. I hope I'm alive for it. Yeah, but I'm not a Wings fan because the Wings were really good in the early 90s, and you couldn't get a ticket. So me and my buddy, Tom from Roseville, we drove out to Pittsburgh because the Pens were winning back-to-back Stanley Cups. He loved Yager, I love Lemieux and Ronnie Francis. And we ended up going on our high school spring breaks for 2 years to Pittsburgh at the old Igloo, the Civic Arena, to watch the Pens because we could actually get tickets. So we became Pens fans. And so that just kind of all worked out when later in my life I met a girl from Pittsburgh and moved here, and raising kids here, it's easy to say let's go Pens for them. So that I'm still a Piston fan, still a Lions fan. I'm always going to be bleeding green. But yeah, there's a couple teams I haven't followed as much as I did when I was a kid.
You spent time in Milwaukee and ended up working with a legend in my book. I mean, Bob Uecker. Funny, love him. What was that experience like to work with Mr. Baseball?
Well, first it could be a little intimidating, as you would think, right? Just scrawny little old me coming into this booth with one of the most iconic comedians, let alone baseball broadcasters, a Hall of Fame baseball broadcaster, and everybody knows him. I grew up watching Mr. Belvedere. I'm in my jammies on a Friday night, watching Mr. Belvedere. And now I'm sitting next to George Owens. It's amazing. But yeah, I think he made it really easy, though, to sit next to him and work with him and feel comfortable. And, we're friends to this day. We talk often. Our wives got to know each other very well, too. And I think that's a credit to him, because he obviously does not have to care about anybody else. But what I really learned from him, among other things, was how he talks to everybody and really tries to, not even tries to, does, he learns from everybody. And it doesn't mean, just people that are in high places. It's people that are, running the elevator, and asks something about them. And he can use that for just background knowledge, just life, or just building a relationship. I think that was something that's so cool behind the scenes that a lot of people probably wouldn't think about with Bob Uecker. Is he's really funny, and he's a really good baseball broadcaster, but just the way that he treats people, and that's how he's always treated me. So he's always made me feel like an equal, although I never will feel that way in my heart, obviously. But the 4 years that we sat next to one another doing the games, he definitely did, and it was such an honor to be able to say that I've done that, for sure.
Joe, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to join us. We're looking forward to the Tigers series with the Pittsburgh Pirates this weekend. I almost said Pittsburgh Penguins there. I meant the Pirates, the Pittsburgh Pirates this weekend. Again, thank you so much for joining us. And of course, a big thank you to McLaren Health Care for presenting Brush Street Beat right here on the Word on Woodward.